Servus Freunde, my name is Jimmy Cage and today... What? Oh great, I love game shows. Let's see. Who directed Slumdog Millionaire? Come on, that's way too easy. Of course it was Danny Boyle. Final answer, C. Too easy. Really too easy. Okay, next one. Jimmy is a German YouTuber who knows an awful lot about Indian cinema. How does he do it? A. He cheats? No! B. He's lucky? Luck has nothing to do with it. C. He's a genius. Damn right. Or D. It's actually all to the Bodymeister's in-depth research and overall knowledge. Without him he wouldn't know shit? What? Well, I guess the Bodymeister is a lot of help. I shouldn't deny it anymore. So I assume D? Final answer, D. Well, look at that. I was right after all. You should never bet on the Bodymeister. Servus Freunde, my name is Jimmy Cage and when it was first released I was absolutely spellbound by Danny Boyle's Slumdog Millionaire. I thought it to be one of the best, most powerful things I have ever seen. That was in 2008, and though I have only seen it once back then, its images, scenes, atmosphere, but most of all its energy stayed with me, and now that I finally went back to it, it was like rekindling an old love. It's a film with an incredible amount of style and drive, an exciting mixture of filmmaking ingredients, mesmerizing camera work, rousing editing, and of course that wild score by legendary Indian composer A.R. Rahman. It's a fascinating blend of Western and Indian cinema, and after my second viewing, it's still one of my favorites. Slumdog Millionaire is a British, French and American co-production. It was directed by Danny Boyle and written by Simon Boyfoy. It is based on the 2005 novel Q&A by the Indian diplomat Vikas Swarup, and it tells the story of Jamal Malik, an 18-year-old orphan from the slums of Mumbai, who is just one question away from winning 20 million rupees on India's version of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. The question is, how did he do it? The style of this movie is bursting from the screen from the very first seconds, and I love the way it is edited. How it jumps back between Jamal sitting in that game show chair and just one slap to the face away he is being tortured by the police, because it simply can't be that someone like him, someone with no education who grew up in the slums, could be able to get through all those questions knowing every single answer. The police inspector is of course played by the late great Irfan Khan. In 2008 I was still years away from discovering Indian cinema for me, and this was my first introduction to him. And though it's only a small part, it's a crucial one, and Irfan definitely left an impression. Like I said in my review of Pan Singh Tomar, he has this commanding screen presence. His character in this is brutal, but he's not a sadist. I guess he's thinking he's just doing his job, and apparently in this situation that involves trying to get a confession out of Jamal by torturing him with electricity. It's only the first 6 minutes, but the movie already has this contrasting mixtures of highs and lows. Being in this glamorous game show with the whole nation watching, but also getting tortured and beaten like a dog. And while the police inspector and his constable are wondering how he could have come this far in the show, Jamal awakens from the torture and states that he knew the answers. We are 6 minutes into the film and already have a clear idea of what it is going to be about. And then we get the movie's title on the screen and the first incredible piece of the soundtrack, O Saya, which was composed by A.R. Rahman and British producer M.I.A. And with it we jump back in time and watch how a 5-year-old Jamal, together with his older brother Salim and other children from the slums, are trying to escape the police. I still vividly remember how I was absolutely floored by this whole sequence back then. Now, seeing it at home on a smaller screen doesn't have quite the exact same impact as in the theater, but it's still a pretty breathtaking introduction to this world. Everything feels so vivid, the way many shots are tilted in this film, the way the camera is following each character, how it goes from super close to far away, how the movie puts individual characters front and center and how it draws a bigger picture, but of course also how the incredible music becomes the driving force behind the images. And with the introduction introduction to these young kids whose actors are really fantastic, the film's language also changes to Hindi with stylized English text put onto the screen rather than just providing mere subtitles. It was Loveleen Tandon, who was one of the movie's 5 casting directors in India, who suggested to Boyle and screenwriter Boyle that to bring the story really to life, some of the dialogue should be in Hindi. They then asked her to pen the Hindi dialogues, and in the end Boyle not only decided to translate a lot of the English dialogue into Hindi, but Loveleen Tandon also became the co-director of the film. Boyle made 3 research trips to India, and he interviewed a lot of street children, and while the movie shines a light on the devastating impacts of poverty and the horrible practices of crippling even the youngest to make more money by begging, it also captures the energy of these young children, the laughter, banter and a sense of community. Now, Slumdog Millionaire has been criticized as being a kind of poverty porn or presenting a wrong image of India. The overall reactions in India were mixed, with some prominent figures supporting and applauding it, and others even claiming it to be anti-Indian. I can only give you my take, but I think it's a very powerful depiction of the human condition. It even reminds me a little bit of the work by American filmmaker Frank Capra. Through this high concept story alone, someone from the slums mastering questions in Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, it already positions itself outside a completely realistic drama. It's much more a fairy tale, and like a Capra movie, it is rooted in very real conflicts, but it goes the way of an enchanting, uplifting filmic fairy tale. Therefore, it's also in vain to criticize highly unlikely coincidences. In the context of this story and approach, it's much more reasonable to understand them as destiny, karma, or just narrative choices to tell this remarkable story. I think it also excuses that most characters aren't that deep or multifaceted. Latika, for example, the young girl and later woman Jamal has known and loved for all his life, is probably more like the goal of the movie than an actual fleshed out character. More like the princess the fairy tale hero wants to save from evil forces. At one point, Jamal and Salim witness the opera Orpheus and Eurydice, and like Orpheus, Jamal's quest is to rescue Latika from all the underworld figures. Slumdog Millionaire is a romance drama fairy tale, and we soon understand that it's really not at all about winning the money at the game show or that much about how Jamal knew all the answers. Sure, we learn all that through the flashbacks, but it's just a clever and fresh framework to be part of this man's life journey, and it is about him finding his way back to the woman he has lost. And like I said at the beginning, it's probably equally about the way the film is doing this. Its style and structure and its boundless energy. It's a homage to Hindi cinema. Simon Boyle studied Salim Javed's kind of cinema, and Boyle has cited the influences of several Bollywood films set in Mumbai, like the 1975 Amitabh Bachchan movie Diwar. As a child, Jamal seeks Amitabh's autograph, and the whole story shares similarities as well. The story of 2 brothers, one being driven by money and the younger one being more honest. Slumdog Millionaire depicts 2 very different characters, and with that, different approaches to life and its hard circumstances. While Jamal is just enjoying the autograph by Amitabh, his brother Salim sees an opportunity to make money by selling it. In the course of the movie, Salim is doing some pretty bad things, but it's also understandable when you look at the circumstances these children grow up in. He sees the cruel world around him and he finds ways to survive in it. This also allows his younger brother Jamal to be at least a little bit more like a child for some time, something Salim, like thousands of other children from the slums, can't really afford. In the end, Slumdog Millionaire is of course also a little morality tale that shows how being honest could still be the way to a happy end. Again, in this fairy tale manner. And maybe I'm jumping around a bit much with today's review, but so does the movie, and I have to point out once again how much I adore its great structure and the way it transitions from one crucial moment in time to the next and back and forth. There's this great moment when Jamal and Salim are jumping off a train, tumble down a dusty slope, and then when they stand up, they are several years older and arriving at the Taj Mahal, where their journey continues. Overall, I would say that I prefer the first hour a little bit to the second. The whole beginning in the slums and these young actors are just so powerful and the intensity is on a constant high. Doesn't mean that the second half isn't great, just not as much as the first, I think. Now, maybe I should also say who the main actors are. Slumdog Millionaire was the first feature film by both Dev Patel and Frida Pinto, and as a matter of fact they really did become a couple for 5 years after the movie. Though they actually don't spend that many scenes together, the direction and filmic elements like Latika's strong association with the color yellow for example is sufficient enough to make us really root for these two people, these underdogs from the slums. And lastly, I have to say it one more time, but the score by A.R. Rahman and how it is used in the film is fantastic. Boyle chose him because he draws on Indian classical music, but also infuses it with R&B, hip-hop and house music to create this powerful new modern mix that becomes the film's heartbeat. Rahman ended up winning 2 Oscars for his work for Slumdog Millionaire, Best Score as well as Best Original Song. And the winner's song Jai Ho was actually made for another movie, but it didn't fit in there, so it could be used for this one. In total the movie won 8 Oscars. Best Picture, Director, Screenplay, Cinematography, Editing, Sound Mixing and set score and original song. Pretty impressive for a film that was almost released straight to DVD in the US, instead of getting a theatrical release. And a film that's telling the story of an underdog, and which then becomes an underdog story itself, is of course also something very fairy tale-like. So in German I'd say, Slumdog Millionaire ist ein mitreißendes, emotionales und einfach unglaublich stylisches Filmmärchen. I give Slumdog Millionaire 9 out of 10. It's more like 8.6, but I don't do that. Alright, that's it like always. Comment below and let me know what you think about Slumdog Millionaire. You can hit me up on Twitter, Instagram and Letterboxd, and also now on Patreon, simply at TheJimmyCage. And if you enjoyed this episode, please give me a thumbs up, share, subscribe, whatever you like. And make sure you hit that bell for all I have to tell.